Every few decades, humanity has spawned groundbreaking revolutions, fundamentally changing life. Steam engines, electricity, automobiles, television, and the internet. In football, there have been tactical revolutions at similar intervals, fundamentally changing the game. The innovators dominated world football for years.
A look at the history of tactics might help to see where it ends.
1872. First international match ever. England fielded a 1-1-8, while the Scots were almost walled in with a 2-2-6. 14 strikers on the pitch, the result 0-0. A few years later, the so-called pyramid emerged, a 2-3-5, the usual system for several decades. In the early 30s, Arsenal coach Herbert Chapman was incredibly successful with his more defensive WM system. No one could beat Arsenal at that time. They probably thought they had found the perfect tactic. But back then, people also thought telegrams were the hottest communication shit the world would ever see.
The pyramid and the WM system were also the most common formations in the first World Cups. And then came the Hungarians.
The proud English were stunned when they lost 6-3 at home against the Hungarian national team in 1953.
Oh, a lovely goal!
What was the tactical twist?
Hungary's centre-forward Nándor Hidegkuti simply dropped back a little. This completely confused England's man marking. Zonal marking hadn't been invented yet. Hidegkuti scored 3 goals. The first false 9 in football history was born.
And this is now highly relevant again, at Jürgen Klopp's Liverpool, for example.
They made a decisive change before last season. The 4-3-3 remained in place, but Firmino's role changed dramatically. Again and again, the nominal centre-forward dropped back, like Hidegkuti back in the day, while Salah and Mané moved more into the centre. And it worked quite well.
The Hungarians' tactics didn't last long, however. In the 60s, defences took their turn in the spotlight, in particular, Catenaccio.
It was invented by the Swiss Karl Rappan in the 30s, but became a real phenomenon with coach Elenio Herrera and his Grande Inter Milan, the top European team of the 60s. Catenaccio is more than just strong defensive walls. The crucial element is the ball-oriented movement. If the opponents are attacking down a flank, one defender shifts over while another covers the space he leaves. A revolution that is still important today.
Whether Inter's success wasn't more down to the special coffee the players drank before every game is another matter. Was Catenaccio the final word? No.
The 70s. Rinus de General Michels established total football with Ajax, the Dutch national team, and later Barcelona. The playmaker in each case, Johan Cruyff. The principle: each player can play any position on the pitch, but the wide formation always stays the same. The 4-3-3 was born, and Michels later became FIFA Coach of the Century.
Ajax still plays kind of total football today, as do Barcelona, with a few exceptions. And even what Bayern plays today is still based on Louis van Gaal's 4-3-3 from the year 2010, with the wingers extremely sticking to the touch lines when in possession.
Pressing high up the pitch also derives from total football. To date, no team has played this system as consistently as the Dutch in the 70s. Maybe in part because it turned out you don't become world champions like that.
And that's why it wasn't the end of football history, of course.
Argentina and Germany dominated the 80s with ugly defensive football. Germany won the 1990 World Cup final by having their defender Guido Buchwald do nothing but mark Maradona for 90 minutes.
Even though man marking had long since been abandoned by then. Same for the libero.
This man was to blame, the wizard of the next great tactical trend, Arrigo Sacchi. A large part of today's football is based on his tactical visions at the end of the 80s.
When we talk about remaining compact, we mean the principle Arrigo Sacchi's AC Milan used to win the European Cup in 1989 and 1990.
The distances between the lines were short. Sacchi was the first to play consistently with a flat back 4 and with an aggressive offside trap. At that time, a revolution. Today, standard with every football team.
Among the major revolutions that changed the game, Arrigo Sacchi's innovations can be described as the end of tactical development.